Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all in this utopian dream where love is love and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all in this utopian dream where love is love and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all in this utopian dream where love is love and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, We've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing in this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Yo. 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 Cats in here busting up my stuff. Doobie doobie doobie. Cats in here busting up my stuff. Doobie doobie doobie. What up, though? What up, Adam? What up, old lobster? Old lobster, thank you. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for your subby. It's a cat hat. Not a hat for cats, but a cat hat. Oh, righty then. Do. Do 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 do. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the chatters. Welcome to the bots. Welcome to the lurkers. Welcome to the thoughts. The thoughts in my head. Got them. All right. Leonardo. Specifically within Leonardo. I can give you a more exact answer because Leonardo has like is on top of other models. Nope. It was their Leonardo Diffusion XL, their fine-tuned model. And the prompt was the Borg Collective, now a diverse and visually stunning amalgamation of species, travels through the stars in their golden and white ships, a symbol of their unstoppable quest for perfection. Though to be fair, while there is diversity here, there only appears to be one other like alien species. So good attempt. Good effort, good effort. All right, today we're what up, ATS? Got the we're not even gonna do any news items. It's gonna be video. We got 2.5 hours. Then we're gonna raid into Talorx, and then I am going to excuse me, end my stream and join Talorx on their stream, and we're going to talk about atheism. And then after the conversation with Talorx, it's movie night. Movie night will be the 1975 5, if I'm recalling correctly, version of Rollerball. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Again, it's like Cyberpunk without the cyber. I like it. It's a good movie. It's got James Caan in it, right? Who doesn't love a little James Caan? Yeah. So let's get into it. So the first thing was something that was in the Discord.
Yeah, those self-driving trucks are going to put us out of work. A computer can definitely figure out how to get down this icy road with 150,000 pounds. A computer can throw tire chains and fix things when it's wrong with a truck. A computer knows exactly where to go when the loader's at some weird spot every morning. It knows how to load it and throw the wrappers too. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't want to bust on this individual because
I got excited because I got to take a train today, and I love trains, but what a mistake taking the train turned out to be. Like, holy Jesus, this is the world's slowest train. Like, it's a train. Why are we going so slow? We waiting on traffic? What's going on? It wasn't even comfortable. What the hell was that? It took an hour and a half, actually an hour and 40 minutes to go 45 kilometers on this thing. Like, it's 54 kilometers by car. The rail line straightens all that out. Each stop takes about as long as sitting at a red light. So why did this train take an hour and a half? That's less than 30 kilometers an hour. Could have rode a bike in quicker time than that. Why would anybody want to commute this way? That's why traffic looks like this. It's all just people sitting in vehicles because the train sucks. The better our public transit is, the less people that take cars, the more room we have on the highway for trucks moving freight, emergency services, and that sort of thing. Like, and we can do better. For example, I went to China this year and rode on their trains. 300 kilometers an hour through the countryside, and it was so smooth that my tea didn't even vibrate. And look at the comfort of a train in China. Darren, how's your leg room?
Well, I can almost touch.
You can even recline the seats and have a nap. And look what the terminal facilities look like. They were huge, massive, comfortable. This is what they look like in Canada. At Toronto, at the CN Tower, lines of people waiting to get down this one tiny ass set of stairs. Like, this is what we get in Canada? Honestly, we should all be pissed off at the government over this. We deserve a hell of a lot more than this. We pay way too many taxes for the shit services we do get. Like, come on, if China can do it, so can we. We can do better.
And that's why, like, not only are they, like, you know, fellow member of the working class, though there's Edison Motors. Let me show you. There's Edison Motors.
We're here at the Boss Garage, and they've...
Slow your roll there, buddy. I haven't watched any of these videos. They look like they're... Oh, you do love this guy's content. Okay. So you're familiar with them. And they're, like, making electric trucks and like that. So, you know. But this video, this is really, like, one of the things. Is the idea of automation is going to be a threat to people's livelihoods. And, you know, because of the current meta and everything, they are going to react in a particular way to try and protect that livelihood. But this extends, and this is part of what we're going to get into. Oh, yeah. Like, you know, it's like this stuff over here is okay. This stuff over here threatens my, you know, my peace. So, but anyways, the point is that whatever changes that you want to make whatever your particular ideology, there are other people who are going to consider that, a threat, a problem, right? And not necessarily because they don't understand your ideology. They might understand your ideology just fine. They just might completely disagree with it. What are you doing? She's doing little baby taps on my chest. Little pop, pop, pop. You want to say hi to the people, Ferris? Say hi to the people, Ferris. All right. And so this little video actually sent me off on a thing. And while we're talking about that, you can see my YouTube history here. This is the guy in
So your main character is a wizard.
In the Discord, I posted his 2-hour long
Look at this.
AI apocalypse video, and I gave my commentary on it there. I only watched half of it. It's not good, for the same reason, right? You know, like that again. I'm not telling anybody how to be ATS, but like if you want to know what I like, if you're asking Dad what Dad thinks you should do, the answer is no. If you want to accomplish something, if you just want to feel good about yourself for dunking on somebody, I can't stop you. But while their AI art apocalypse video was fairly mid, nothing in it is particularly new or I got it. But I also wanted to answer the question behind the sarcasm, right? Like, so that it's clear where I stand, because there's a lot of, there's a lot of that. This is Twitch. Twitch is filled with people doing the dunks, like, we're going to laugh at these people, or how are these people so stupid, or everything else. And again, I'm not telling you how to be, but like, one, why you consuming that content, it's funny that they call it brain rot, because, it like literally rots your brain, but that's your world, squirrel. Anyways, back to this guy. I'm not a fan of the AI art video, and because I went and watched these videos, the why revolutions are hard to write, why revolutions fail, and how revolutions really work. These are significantly better, right? Like presenting not only internal politics of a country, but geopolitics in the framework of being a writer and world building, and comparing them to a variety of, like, showing you Hunger Games and other dystopian novels and things like that. It's really good. Like, this is solid content, and it got me off on my own little tangent that I'm going to be working on, so on and so forth. So yeah, very good when you stick to what you know, right? Which is why I generally try to stay in my lane. This one, why revolutions fail, it really gives you like that something that happens, and it's probably doing to being on the internet and having to pick a side in any little debate or to pick a side on everything and defend that to the death. And like most people, especially the talking heads like myself on Twitch, haven't learned enough about any particular geopolitical thing to give you a good analysis of it. This is why I don't do it. Right? It takes time. You have to understand the history. You can't just say, oh, because this thing from 5 years ago, ergo this thing now is cool. That's not how countries work. And if you're just going to view everything through your own ideological lens, again, that's on you. But you're going to be wrong more often than you're right. Listen, when I see someone dunking on backyard scientists, I ask them what they would want to build and how they think independent invention happens. It may be bourgeoisie decadence for a YouTuber, but for a library makerspace community or affinity group to do the same, where the one guy is just the face for his friends out to YouTube, suddenly there's nuance. I want us all to be backyard scientists for ourselves after poverty is abolished. Sure, if that's what you want to do, 100%. I don't know backyard scientists, but I assume I'm picking up a whole bunch of signals, and I got an idea of what they're about based on what you just told me. And it's like certain phrases like bourgeoisie decadence or bourgeois decadence or however, is used by some people as a thought terminating cliche rather than a substantive comment. And it's trotted out like, personally, fan of LGBTQIA plus rights, right? Big fan of bodily autonomy, big fan of self-ownership. There are some people who are leftist who refer to any of that as bourgeois decadence. I don't want to have a conversation with those people. I don't want to waste my time discussing their particular, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist views on anything. And I'm just not going to. And so I was watching these now. Again, it's a Bloomberg Originals. Bloomberg is, is media. It's one of those things is I can apply it to anything I want to apply it to, right? Okay, so my last thought on the subject, I am going to name somebody specifically by name because it occurred to me today. Like, I didn't go out and watch the video. The homie Arun watched the video, gave their analysis on their channel. And so recently, and it's relevant to what we're talking about today. Recently on Second Thoughts, I think it's Independent Thought, or it could be Second Thought. I'm not sure which. Did a video on authoritarianism, and it was basically like to say we overuse the phrase authoritarianism, and and contextually, I'm not saying there is evidence. I am saying that based on what I observe from JT, this was a response to calling China authoritarian. And at some point in the video, they say, not to do whataboutism, and then proceeds to do whataboutism for the entire rest of the video. Basically, anyone in the United States or the United States itself or what have you should not be critiquing an authoritarian anything because of the authoritarianism that exists within the United States. And to me, that, I understand that critique. I am not saying that the United States is an authoritarian. But then JT, towards the end of the video, there is a section where they talk about, maybe before talking about the authoritarianism of China, we need to worry about the authoritarianism closer to home. And yes and no. Again, we should worry about the thing that's closer to home and the things that we can more immediately affect. But also, it sounded an awful lot like Jordan Peterson and their, until you've got all your own shit together, don't talk about other people's shit. And it was like, it was like a weird kind of horseshoe theory that happened right in front of my face. And I was like, oh my. All right. Now that I've focused over here and not looked at chat, what are y'all about? There is a lot of authoritarianism to go around these days, though, but yeah, it can be conveniently overused. What about the authoritarian of capital hits, but no analysis of Cuba's new LGBTQ plus family code coming from the People's Council up to the government? Shame, JT, shame. First thought, second thought, and the podcast were all removed from Nebula. Bro lost his biggest sponsor from the sound of it. I don't know why I'm getting different things. And two things. One, I don't care. Right? I really don't care. I don't care about JT. I like a leftist with a voice to have a platform on which to speak that voice. I've seen the people who are on Nebula. So, what did you do? But also, could have been a thing about the current Middle East thing. Right. Well, that's the thing. If I heard right. Right. Which is why I don't want to. I'm not going to comment on it. You know what I mean? I heard from a guy from their cousin's brother's former roommate, right? I don't do this. One of the reasons that I'm so, I go out of my way. I do a lot of work to curate my social media feeds. And I'm dipping out on streams of people that I like because of their approach to any kind of coverage around the current Middle East crisis. The specific one, there's a bunch of crises in the Middle East. But one thing I learned a long time ago on Facebook is like words plus picture and words plus video are like, you should be skeptical, right? But because a particular piece of media from some random account on Twitter agrees with your position, you take it as gospel. And I just don't, right? Like I might want a particular thing to be accurate for its, potential propaganda utility or that kind of stuff. Like going all the way back to, and I said this before, so I stand by it. Going all the way back to the writer's strike, and when an unnamed executive said, we will wait them out until, they're getting kicked out of their homes or whatever, right? That was never attributed to anyone, never backed up by any other source other than the original source, to my knowledge. If anybody can correct that, I'll own it. But to my knowledge, it was never corroborated by anyone else, just this one iteration that existed. And there were people, because it fit their worldview, their narratives, their politics, they used it as an example of something that exists. And I understand, I can appreciate the temptation to do this. I absolutely can. There's zero chance I can do it. I have to be equally skeptical, because that way lies madness. That if you accept it just because it agrees with you without any verification, well, then people can get you to believe anything. And that's a problem. And you should understand that that's a problem. And you should want to not have that. The central philosophy of what I talk about here is building foundational scaffolding so that whatever your beliefs are and whatever your ideas are, they are supported and you can justify them and you can explain them easily to others. Not just, of course, that kind of person would do that kind of thing, so therefore it must be true. All right, I think that's it. Half an hour, not bad. Now we're going to get into some video, and I'm going to skip over the parts that are going to be, like, to get to the points that I want. But, like, if you can, especially this Estonia video, Elder Gang, there is, the first part of this is basically dunking on the USSR and like that. And if you find that triggering, you should not probably watch that video. But for, again, why geopolitics is hard is because Estonia has a different kind of history with Russia / the USSR than another country might. But Estonia, I really like, if the button is not going to do what I want it to do, then don't put the fucking button there, YouTube. Don't start the video until the buttons work. Which video are we on now?
As democracies become modern digital states,
here we go. Okay.
They'll get inspiration.
All right, we're going to jump ahead. Okay, to digital identities. Estonia is apparently a very high-tech like as far as their democracy, according to this video. Like, admittedly, I have not looked into it more than this. So there's probably a lot more that goes with it, but this is the, like, when a country like Estonia is leading the way instead of a country like the United States, you have to, people should be questioning their vision of what your country is actually about. And also, you know, countries are bullshit, borders are bullshit, nationalism is bullshit. Something, it's not imperialism with a red flag, even with the same finance, capital. Yeah.
Super interesting, of course. A firm believes that being cyber attacked is a bad thing. They will really do the minimal reporting they need.
Exactly.
Which then makes the next cyber attack more likely.
They were talking about being a very internet-based country for their services and whatnot. They apparently were cyber attacked back in 2007, allegedly from Russia, and they're talking about the culture that exists around cyber attack reporting, which is generally poor because of, like, they don't get into this in there, but like this is one of the issues with investor-based capitalism, right? Is that if you rely on investors to support your business, then when your company gets a cyber attack or in some way shows weakness, then you are vulnerable to a withdrawal of funding.
More likely, and other companies more vulnerable. And why we have this computer emergency rescue team that is now also helping the companies to find their vulnerable places. It's not anymore that, you know, the security of a country only depends on government. It's also the private companies. And I think what is also maybe different here is that our people trust government and government services regarding digital issues, whereas maybe not so much the private companies.
Right.
Whereas in some other countries, it's more like people give away a lot to the private companies, and there's like, oh, I'm not giving it to the state. But I think what is important that I've always stressed is the digital identities. I mean, in the real world, country issues a passport. You are who you say you are.
Absolutely.
In the online world, it is not always the countries.
On the internet, no one knows you're a dog.
Exactly. It's my
famous
famous cartoon. It's
yeah,
like,
that's right.
The power of internet is that nobody knows you're a dog.
Yeah.
Well, the digital identity solve that issue. And that's why we have that. And you have to use this digital identity and you can really be sure that you are who you say you are. Not that, are you 18? Check the box. Yes, I'm 18.
The first time I came to Estonia more than 20 years ago, it was to come and look at some private companies. I saw a company called Privador out of the University of Tartu. It's now known as Guard's Time, which is quite a successful security and encryption company. And of course, you had the tremendous success with Skype, and Skype gave birth to a new ecosystem, and companies like TransferWise, known as Wise, and Bolt, and Pipedrive, and Pactum, and Starship, which makes little robots that deliver food.
Here I host every year the student companies. And what is interesting about this is that our market is so small that all the students think about the global problems that they want to solve.
Right.
And that's why we have most startups per capita and a lot of good ideas.
Well, most startups per capita, I think, amongst the highest venture capital per capita, so the funds that are required to get these startups going. But I was curious about why do you think Estonia has that special source? Is it about having to rebuild an economy because the Soviet Union hadn't left a robust economy here?
In the Soviet Union, you didn't have any private property, so you didn't have any market economy. When you haven't had those opportunities, you are so willing to use those opportunities that unfold.
Yeah.
So that is the first thing. The second thing is the education, definitely. So trying to focus on STEM subjects and everything.
You said we had no market economy, and that's very hard for many of us to understand. So what does that mean?
The civil code of Estonia was really small because it didn't have a lot of paragraphs, because you didn't have any property to.
So you didn't need any laws to explain them, right?
And you didn't really have all those agreements, and everything had to be built from scratch. And so, first thing we understood back then was that what makes investors trust your country is the rule of law. So building the laws and the legal system was very important in order to attract investments, and also keeping that and getting rid of corruption. And I started in a law firm when I was 18, giving advice because the clients were young, the market was young, the laws were young, a lot of things were forgiven. And I think this mentality has remained, the startup mentality, that also for the government. So that is okay to fail, because you learn something on the way and you can, rebuild on that.
If I sum up what this journey looks like, there is a sense of nationhood that delivers a national resilience. And that resilience comes from having not had freedom, perhaps, and then having freedom and understanding its value, living next to a threat, which leads also to the development of the framework for opportunity, right? You build these new laws, these institutions that enable a democratic and market economy connected to a strong education system that had, a focus on STEM, and then perhaps a little bit of good fortune that this happens around the time the digital revolution is taking place.
We introduced digital identities already in 2000, when many didn't have internet. That is also the leadership from the government side, because people didn't know that they need digital identities. But building the framework and starting to build this e-governance, and also the data that you get from this, and making it open to the companies and using that, I think was one of the fundamentals. Being a small nation, by being digital, you can be much bigger. We have the e-residence program, and we are having all the services that we can use.
The e-residency program is so clever. It allows someone who's not an Estonian citizen to get an e-residency in Estonia, so they can start to build a business that can work in the digital marketplace, but have the benefits of Estonia's relationships within the EU and Estonia's legal system, even if they don't necessarily
come
physically come.
Here.
I mean, what's that actually done for Estonia?
So that also means the tax money eventually, and it also means that you have a lot of friends around the world. I mean, when Brexit happened, we had a lot of e-residents coming.
Many of my friends
from UK.
Yes, that's
it's
right.
like, okay, how can we still enjoy the European Union and everything that is related to it? I think what we have understood since 2000s is that people are more and more living their lives online.
Right.
So the government also has to be there with the services. Otherwise, the people just alienate from the.
And we had to get through that, bit of market-based propaganda to get to this portion, which is what I really wanted to talk about, is how they have created an environment where, where they offer these services as a government should, to their citizens, and how they access them and everything else. And again, based just on this video, I am not fully advocating for an Estonian model or anything. I need to do a bunch more looking into to see how that would actually work. But this is another aspect of the way things could be writ large around the world, right? Like, because we could give people these digital identities, and then in some of the other videos we're going to look at in a bit, those connect to the artificial intelligence revolution that is happening and the post-work economy.
The state, because I can do everything online. The only establishment or institution that I can't deal with is my government. And I think the government should be where the people are.
Right.
But that requires the identities, and we could solve so many issues with this.
There's something else there that I found really fascinating. As a government, you're only allowed to ask the citizen once for their information. And so every department has to use the information the government already has. Whereas if you're in the United States or in the UK and you're trying to do something with a different government department, you're in there typing in the same information time and time again. Is that a cultural trope? Is that a design decision? Was there somebody who thought this is really important for us to get legitimacy?
It's all about customer experience, really. We don't use the plastics for your driver's license anymore.
Right.
So you don't know when it's going to expire, really, because you don't really use it as such. So my state writes me an email, your driver's license is expiring. You have two choices, either to go to an office, it costs you more, or to do it online. You have to get your doctor's approval that you can still drive a car. And is this still your signature? We have this. Is still your address? Is that the picture we can use? We have that picture of you. Yes, check, check, check. And it's done. And now we are trying to do more of this personalized, event-based services. So that, for example, your kid is born. So the government says that, okay, you can register here, you can do this, you have to do this. And so you don't have to think that, what else do I have to do? Because you're the first-time parent and you don't really know.
You don't have a lot of headspace, to be honest, when you're
that
a
is
first-time
true.
parent either.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
But technology is changing constantly. I mean, it's changing exponentially. And we, in the last 5-10 years, have seen this incredible transformation through artificial intelligence and many, many new risks emerging from it. So what do you do as a forward-looking government in terms of addressing the risks of AI, the questions that need to be asked of it?
We see this on the European level, that we could use or diminish the administrative burden by using the AI.
So you see there's an efficiency opportunity.
Absolutely.
But there's still this problem of the idea of the black box, the idea that there's some creature that is making decisions about my life that I can't perhaps inspect.
We can't pretend that this is not coming. So we are ignoring this. No, we don't do that. But at the same time, we are very cautious of over-regulating, because if you start to regulate in a very early phase, then you focus on the incumbents, because this is what you know, and okay, this way it operates. But every time you focus on the incumbent, you actually make the rules that are made for the incumbent and not for everybody else.
Yes.
So the balance question is about how to not kill innovation.
And one of the things that comes up an awful lot when talking about AI and regulation is that idea of regulatory capture. And some people don't want regulation because of regulatory capture and everything else. This framing of it as not an issue of whether or not to regulate, but when to regulate and how to regulate, so that you make sure that you don't, even unintentionally, provide that regulatory capture environment, right? Because you're basing it on what you know. It's just another interesting way to put it. Like, regulation is more complex than people make it out to be. You know, it isn't simple, especially not under the current way we do things, right? The current meta.
At the same time, addressing the risks that there are. I think that very often on the
Do you think the EU has got this
exactly,
right with AI?
Exactly that I wanted to point out that European Union is focusing, trying to get all the risks.
Right.
And I think that is not finding and striking the right balance regarding this. So I think it needs more of still this startup mentality that, of course, cooperation with companies that are working on the AI, but also going to find this balance in between so that you don't kill the innovation on the way. And it is difficult, I must say. In our government, we try to find ways we can use the AI, and we have over 100 user cases already where we use that.
The premise of our conversation was that as we move into these exponential times of radically changing technologies, that legitimacy, resilience, and engagement will be critical capabilities for governments, and that digital capabilities are the ones that will allow that to happen. You know, to what extent do you think that these are lessons that can be learnt and should be learnt by other countries, in particular larger countries?
Well, there are many lessons on the way. And I always say that when we have tested something, you know, it's like a beta version before you go online in a bigger scale. We have tested
right.
this.
So Estonia is the beta test market.
Yes, exactly. So we have tested that, and these are the bugs. So we have tried to show other countries what is our experience regarding this. But I think we have to cooperate. And I see that there is a difference of mindset. I mean, I bring you one example. We had a debate on the European level, and the representative of one country said to something that we were doing, is like, oh my God, you're doing this, and this is the most sensitive data there is. And I replied that it's also the data that helps the people the most. So it depends how you see it. Do you only see the risks, or you also see the opportunities that there are? And of course, you can't overlook the risks. I'm not anyway proposing that, but you have to see the opportunities. Again, if the private companies are driving this, then the governments are left behind. And if the tools are there, you can't, you know, out-regulate them because they are already there. It's like the Industrial Revolution, you know. You can't say that you can't use the shoeing machine when it has been invented.
Right.
You have to think about what comes with it.
Okay. And from there, in the talk about legitimacy, this conversation, again, same guy, same Bloomberg.
We are at the beginning of
a break it into
golden age for democracy. That is the premise for today's conversation. Welcome to Exponentially.
What up, No Great?
Democracy
is authoritarianism when the government makes you use a sewing machine?
Is having a popularity crisis. Recent research found that the young are more disaffected with it than at any point in the last 50 years. Polarization is a common problem. The basic questions of state, economic growth and fairness seem out of reach. And new challenges, technology, climate change and social division loom. What if we could engage people in new ways and have them deliberate over the toughest political issues? Could this put democracy back?
All right, let's jump ahead.
In the smoke-filled back room of a party headquarters,
Yeah.
You actually do have the faculties to participate in the decision making that otherwise takes place, in the smoke-filled back room of a party headquarters. These are things that you have called mini publics. What is a mini public, and what are the different sort of subtypes of mini public?
So a mini public is, as the name indicates, a sort of a miniature version of the larger public that you select on the basis of random selection through civic lotteries.
Say what you mean by that, a civic lottery?
A civic lottery, well, it's a phrase that's been coined in my world to try to make it more visual and enticing.
So not the lottery that I lose or used to lose.
No, exactly. You're supposed to win in that scenario. So basically, you receive an email or a letter in the mail that says, oh, you've been selected to join this citizens jury or the citizens assembly or this deliberative poll, where you're going to meet other people just like you, selected at random.
Since David Shapiro brought it up last week, I'm going to go with yes. Yeah, I don't know. The Zeitgeist movement, I like back when it first showed up, I dabbled in, Facebook and like that. And it seemed like, interesting ideas, but at the same time, some of it tended to be a little either like overly sci-fi, like their idea of floating cities, or sometimes a little culty, right? So I'm not saying don't observe it, just observe with your skepticism turned up, so that and again, it's been a few years since I engaged with any of that. It may have improved, it may have gotten worse, I can't say.
Random from the entire population to deliberate about issues of interest, it could be healthcare, it could be immigration, it could be end-of-life issues, it could be infrastructures, economic policy, anything. And then at the end, the group writes up a set of recommendations that are supposed to be transmitted to the government.
So we take a random selection of the population, the taller and the less tall, the more sporty, the less sporty, the more interested in politics, the less interested in politics, the men, the women.
My guy, we understand what a random selection is, okay?
In the young, the old, the working, the not working. This random selection that represents the nation, and we give them a really difficult question. You talked about end of life or healthcare that politicians haven't been able to solve.
Yep.
And you put them in the room, and you hope that at the end of that process, they come up with recommendations that are better than would otherwise have come through the traditional political process, right? I mean, it sounds quite ambitious, dare I say it?
Yeah, I suppose it sounds crazy to some people, but actually.
Now, I don't. Anyone can correct me on this if you have better knowledge. I believe that the old democracy of like Athens. Now they had like obviously a sub-selection because there was like citizens, and that didn't include women, children, slaves. There's a whole bunch of other people who weren't involved in the political process. But I believe the representatives were randomly chosen. Either way, that to me sounds like a much better. What up, Maddie? A much better way to choose a House of Representatives than the current model. And yes, I completely understand that a great number of people are uninformed about a lot of things. But one, if you look at the current structure as it currently exists, it's a mess. It doesn't function properly anymore, if it ever did. And there's an entrenchment of power that occurs within the current structure that kind of thing would eliminate. And also, to go back to the first point, creating that kind of random, not only do you have a better chance of getting actual representation of different communities that exist within, the United States, or again, we're talking about the idea of like worldwide, but also then people, at the very least, and she talks about this in a little bit, those people become more educated about, whatever the issues are. And like, I don't know if it's better to have like a body that is selected to do a bunch of different things, or like individual bodies that are randomly assembled to address specific like areas of concern. Like, you wouldn't do it per law until we get to like some really digitized kind of, where almost anyone can vote, and then you just randomly get selected on your device, and then you participate in the thing for like a month or whatever. But like in the intervening period, you like, right, you are the random committee for healthcare, and you do all the healthcare stuff for that period. You know what I mean? Not to advocate for liberal girl boss feminism, but it does delight me to see so many women in the field of comp sci AI. We could learn a thing or two about having better representation in some other sciences, indeed. I 100% agree. Like, in the previous one, that is the president or prime minister or whatever, the highest elected official of Estonia. That is a country leader. This is a member of an organization that works with government. They are French. I don't think they do just France, because they reference an Irish experience regarding abortion, but that may just be referential. One of the biggest problems is that it didn't keep up with the current population level it had originally been set up to. I'm gerrymandering this committee to only be tech bros. Theoretically, you could hack the system, and yes, you could do something like that. But to go back to the Estonian leader's point, you can't overlook the concerns, you can't overlook the issues, but you can't drive forward only being concerned about the negatives. You have to see the opportunities. You talk about corporate feminism is taboo, is that area. I found that there are some relevant aspects to it. Yeah. Like, again, we meet, especially here on Twitch, we meme a lot, and sometimes we meme too far to be understood. Right? There's a joke about my friend Jake. My friend, I'll be here, no Greg. Take care. There's a joke about my friend Jake. This man is too clever to be understood, and that's sometimes how I feel with talking on Twitch about things. Is like, sometimes we're making too many jokes, and that like, even though, yes, we don't, the solution to the problem is not for half of the drone pilots to be women, right? Like, that is not the issue. But representation from those communities still at the same time should not be neglected. Like in the current meta, right? In between here and wherever you want to get to, we also should have that kind of, you know, that growth as a you know, species or what have you. Settle, please. Thank you. Okay.
Actually, it works. So some famous example are the citizens' assemblies in Ireland in 2012 and 2016. They were respectively on marriage equality and abortion.
Right.
So
So
let's
those
take
are
abortion.
very, very contentious issues in
Hugely,
Ireland.
you
both
know,
of those.
contentious issue in a Catholic country like Ireland, where they had actually made it a crime, right? And so they had a sample of 99 randomly selected citizens who deliberated over the course of several months. And at the end, they recommended that abortion be decriminalized. And Parliament, which had been incapable of coming up with that kind of, you know, conclusion over decades, put that proposal to a referendum, and 2/3 of the Irish population, voting population, approved of that change.
When I was reading about the Irish,
and that was one of the things, like that whole thing kind of came out of the blue, right? Like it just happened. And I didn't really understand how it happened. I did not know it was going to be John Wick with swords. I did hear about the Highlander reboot. Highlander is another, like, I only watched the TV series, and Henry Cavill is like actually a cinematic sword fighter, you know, so if you watch any of the making of The Witcher, he's one of those people you want wielding a sword in your show if it's got swords in it. But there was a Highlander TV show. I remember watching all of that. I am a fan of the mythology, so I will watch all the content related to that.
Citizens' Assembly on abortion, I was really fascinated by one part of the research, and it suggested that the discussions amongst these participants were much more dignified and were better able to deal with difficult questions than the nature of the discussion that had happened within parliamentary committees within the Irish Parliament, that those would be.
And this is an important thing, like to take this and apply it to our own government, right? Like we are in a state where there is I did not know about the Highlander cartoon. There is like the playing for the soundbite, again, like memeing, right? Like they are, and we have gone completely off the rails, right? There are members of government showing revenge porn into the, you know, congressional record. There are members of government who are reading excerpts from, you know, that are like highly graphic sexually excerpts of stuff into the congressional record, right? Because of January 6th, a variety of different, you know, there is now a motherfucker, at least one, in the congressional record because of January 6th. So like we have gone off the rails. And part of that is due, a large amount of that I would say is due to the need to get reelected, right? That participation in government is no longer, if it ever was, thought of as a service. It is, you know, a way to accumulate money and power and things like that. And the idea of having a random assortment of citizens resolve these issues, it doesn't, like, if you don't get along with your neighbor, it's a problem for everybody. So we tend to behave differently around people that we have a closer contact with. And generally speaking, all around the world, people are just people, right? They want food on the table and, and to survive the night and hopefully make a better life for their children and things like that, right? They want their basic needs met. And it's just the people in power that are the problem.
Be filled with showboating and inflammatory talk, and would steer away from harder questions.
Absolutely, it's my experience, and I think the evidence shows that that's always the case. In parliaments, people grandstand and fight and debate in this extremely adversarial manner. In citizens' assemblies, they actually deliberate. They engage in a sort of respectful exchange of arguments and views with people who disagree with them, but they take them seriously and they listen carefully. And I think the reason is structural. Like, people who come into parliament come in with a mandate, or at least some pre-commitments and an allegiance to a party. Whereas in citizens' assemblies, you have people who come in as who they are, but no one knows whether they are Republican or Democrat or pro-life or pro-choice. You don't know anything. You just know that they're your peers. So it fosters much more open-mindedness and is much more conducive to listening to each other.
And I'm quite curious about...
Again, this is a really good video. I do recommend some of these Bloomberg originals. They're well produced. We have a bunch of things that I want to get to. I just want to touch on a piece of this. There's another one. All right, so this is the Microsoft.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile. We are...
Yo, welcome in, Raiders. What up, James? What up, Mouselander? What up, Red Hobbit? What up, Princess Kimberly? What up, Octavia? Why can't you have like a short name? I do everything the old-fashioned way. And here's my mod just sitting here laughing at me while I'm typing things with my fingers. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Globus the Elder. I talk about automation, AI, robots, the future, that kind of stuff. We've been covering what up, Kohai? We're talking about Estonia, which has digital citizenship. We looked at a thing.
Like any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back.
What up, don't ooh. We were talking about like digital governance, or digital citizenship, and the idea of citizen assemblies selected at random, which would go along with that idea, where rather than having something like this absolute clusterfuck that currently exists, we had just randomly selected citizens who learned about stuff, participated in a particular thing. There's a lot that would need to be worked out, right? Like, I'm way oversimplifying what would be involved, but like that kind of governance actually sounds like a better idea than what we have. And now we're looking at a video from Microsoft or from Bloomberg Originals. It's talking about, the Microsoft and OpenAI, but it's just his last section. From Sam Altman, I wanted to bring to your attention.
Good safety system practices in many categories. It's not perfect, and this won't be perfect either. Things will go wrong. The main thing that I feel is important about this technology is that we are on an exponential curve, and a relatively steep one. And human intuition for exponential curves is like really bad in general. It clearly was not that important in our evolutionary history. And so I think we have to, given that we all have that weakness, I think we have to like really push ourselves to say, okay, GPT-4, not a risk like you're talking about there, but how sure are we that GPT-9 won't be? And if it might be, even if there's a small percentage chance of it being really bad, like that deserves great care.
And if there is that small percentage chance, why keep doing this at all? Like, why not stop?
I mean, a bunch of reasons. I think I think that the upsides here are tremendous. The opportunity for everyone on Earth to have a better quality education than basically anyone can get today. That seems like really important, and that'd be a bad thing to stop. Medical care and what's I think going to happen there, and making that available like truly globally. That's going to be transformative. The scientific progress we're going to see. I'm a big believer that like real sustainable improvements in quality of life come from scientific and technological progress, and I think we're gonna have a lot more of that. So there are all the obvious benefits, and I think it'd be good to end poverty, but we got to manage through the risk to get there. I also think at this point, given how much people see the economic benefits and potential, no company could stop it.
I think even you would acknowledge you have an incredible amount of power at this moment in time. Why should we trust you?
You shouldn't.
And I understand, right? Like, it's just words. But where another person in their position might have said, oh, you can trust me because blah, 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 blah. Sam Altman did say, when asked, why should we trust you? He said you shouldn't, right? Because trust is a thing. We will hear the rest.
I don't, as you know me for a long time, public talking, like I'd rather be in the office working. But I think at this moment in time, like people deserve basically as much time asking questions as they want. And I'm trying to show up and do it. But more to that, no one person should be trusted here. The board can fire me. I think that's important. I think the board over time needs to get democratized to all of humanity. There's many ways that could be implemented. We think this technology, the benefits, the access to it, the governance of it, belongs to humanity as a whole. If this really works, it's quite a powerful technology, and you should not trust one company and certainly not one person with it.
I do recommend watching this. As I said, Bloomberg Originals has some well-produced quality content. Does history progress from then and now? This is a good one. I'm gonna see if I can try to get that on Monday. It's just long, right? People need to work on smaller blocks so that they can be covered by streamers on Twitch. That's a self-serving statement if I ever heard one. But yeah, the idea, personally, I love the answer. I think it's the most honest, and where I in a position to advise, I would never say you could trust someone because of X or Y, because that's asking for problems. 100%. And again, I just wanted to, it could come off, I avoid the appearance of impropriety, right? Even the appearance of it. there are statements I have made and will continue to make that could put me in the Sam Altman simp category. And it's just, I got two things I can do. I can look at his words and I can look at his actions and I can synthesize the two of them. And I feel like, and he's young, or they're young, so there's still that, potential that the anarchist principles that I have seen could fall in that I just don't want anybody to tell me what to do, youthful anarchist category, rather than someone like myself, or James, who have are more seasoned and understand the ideas a little bit better. I hope that Sam Altman is as he appears to be, which is, I get to tell you what to do because you work for me. You're my mod, Reed. I gave you the sword, you didn't ask for it, but now you work for me because that's how internet Twitch works. All right. But we will watch. Let's watch a David Shapiro.
Good morning and happy.
Sonia Blue, welcome in. These companies, though, often start with good intentions. Look at Google, but after profit rolls in, yikes. Which is why, you're not wrong, right? I'm not blinded to that. I don't want. I try to caveat the shit out of things, and I also try to look at them. That my expectation of any given entity within the space is to act as that entity should. One of the things that happens is that we expect someone like Joe Biden to be, other than how Joe Biden is, right? And then people get angry and they go off about Joe Biden. Joe Biden should just do this. Joe Biden, as he currently exists, this iteration of Joe Biden is not going to do those things. So your expectations that he will always be disappointed, and then you're going to get upset at your own created expectations. My expectations are for these companies to act in their interests in the current meta, and yet at the other side of that,
and the peril here are huge.
Thank you for the follow. On the other side of that, it is actually going to be a benefit for everyone. This is, if you want that socialist utopia, this is the only way I can see that we can get there within a reasonable amount of time, a realistic amount of time before, the earth catches fire and everything falls apart. So,
Happy Friday, everybody. So there's been a lot of news this week about AI safety at a global scale. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick recap of the news. I'm not going to take a super deep dive. Some of it is basically a rehash of things that you might already know. But then I will do a little bit of unpacking my perspective on AI safety. And there are some good and there is some bad. So let's get into it. So first, earlier this week, I think it was on Tuesday, Mustafa Suleyman, the DeepMind co-founder, he made another push very publicly for a global panel to regulate AI safety. So he's basically saying he's calling for an IPCC, but for AI. So rather than necessarily a regulator, this is more of a monitor or a watchdog. So, if you're not familiar, the IPCC releases their ominous annual reports on the climate change. So basically, it's an international commission for monitoring climate change, and he wants to do the same thing for AI, which I think is good. So basically, now we've had three kind of different proposals. One, a monitor/watchdog. Number two, a global regulator like the IAEA, which is a nuclear regulator. And then three, and this is what I'm actually disappointed about, is I'm seeing less calls for just global research or international research. So I would prefer to see a world where we have all three, where we have an observer, where we have a regulator, and then we have a researcher. And there are several examples of international research efforts, namely CERN, because whenever
the reason why they walked back from that is, I mean, it's straight nationalism, right? Like, because the person who gets to that artificial general intelligence that, like, is, you know, the holy grail, the thing that transforms the world, that every country still has that thing where they want it to represent their political ideology. Where something like CERN and, you know, studying the particle physics of the beginning of the universe, like, you can develop stuff off that, but there's nothing like, it's not gonna change the world in the same way. There's so many ideas on how to follow that up. I'll avoid turning this into. Thank you for that. Should I make a Discord thing so that y'all can do your smuttiness in the Discord?
Whenever there's a new technology or a new domain of science that is valuable to everyone, it behooves all of us to invest in the research. So I'm not sure why no one has proposed at this level a CERN for AI, and instead they're focusing more on like the stick rather than the carrot. Anyways, so that's kind of the TLDR. He's calling for an IPCC.
I mean, he says he doesn't know. I just explained why. Like, this is 100% the case. It like, as opposed to cooling down any kind of temperature regarding artificial intelligence and creating any kind of international, you know, working group or anything. The United States, for instance, is, you know, cutting off exports of particular chips to, you know, to China, right? Like that at best, and also at best, that's a temporary measure, because China has always shown the capacity that whenever they are denied a particular kind of technology, they will find a way to acquire it on their own terms. So, like, to me, it just makes more sense to work with them. But then again, I'm a globalist.
But for AI. Now, one thing that I wanted to remind you of, though, is that back in June, the UN Security General did basically say, like, hey, we're amenable to the idea of creating a global AI watchdog. So, again, we've covered this before, but this is exactly what I just said, the IAEA. So, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he said that this seems like a good idea. So I do agree with that. I would like to see more than just a watchdog, because, again, the magnitude of AI is on the same scale of nuclear energy and other kinds of frontier, both scientific and engineering breakthroughs. Now,
one of the things that has been it's been irritating me for some time, and I've been thinking about it to figure out exactly why. Like, a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, referencing it to nuclear weapons, and that is like not, they're not the same. They're not even close to the same. Only if you look at them in both these things could destroy humanity aspects, are they remotely connected. But if you look at, like, I mean, I suppose if I had my own nuclear weapon that I could get a lot more stuff, right? Because that tends to be the way that works. But realistically, artificial general intelligence has a lot of, a positive upside for like being able to analyze vast amounts of data and assigning resources where they're needed predictively as opposed to reactively, and a variety of different things that you can do with artificial intelligence that nuclear weapons are simply not suited for. So I'm getting tired of hearing the nuclear metaphor.
Now, also earlier, around that same time, OpenAI coming to the table meetings, we saw Sam Altman in Congress, and this is the reason that I brought this up is because they talk about voluntary commitments. The thing is, if we're all depending on voluntary commitments, like, yes, it's good. It's a good, signal saying, hey, we're going to play ball, right? But, cynically, you could read this as virtue signaling. But
you absolutely can, which is going back to the previous video and the end of it, that, that can all be virtue signaling. Another way to look at it is, and, this is a bit of a twisted metaphor, but the idea of mob bosses or other like that, people who have no reason to trust each other, when they start to, when you want that interaction, you need to like at least talk the talk and then walk the walk. You know what I mean? It's almost like the nuclear metaphor is incomplete without the nuanced topic of nuclear power too. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like, yes, right? And we don't, I suppose that kind of leans it a little bit more, but at the same time, like, we need more nuclear power, and the way that we go about the process, like what happened with Iran because of the, the split personality of the American government is just a mess. What up, Iron Orchid? The ability to action decisions as the key. Who will give the decider an action or role to a general AI connected to mass destruction items like nuke? I don't believe that, like, I don't believe that humans should have access to the nukes either. But taking a step back, I am at 100% against artificial intelligence being tasked with weapons, right? Like, it is, like, if you can think of a reason that it's bad, I agree with you.
Being interpreting it as charitably as possible, you might say, okay, this is actually a good sign. And OpenAI is, they're trying to be responsible and they're trying to, be.
And for everyone who came in, this is Ferris. Ferris is the Globus the Elder shoulder cat. She will climb up here. She will ask for pets. And she will fall asleep. And then in her sleep, she will have dreams and dig her tiny little claws. Yes, my dear. Tiny little claws into my shoulder. And that's love.
Basically set an example. They're trying to say, like, we're going to pilot and refine governance practices. The biggest thing that scares me about OpenAI, though, and this is because Sam Altman and their corporate policy, their internal doctrine is humans must and will remain in control at all times, forever and ever into the future. And by virtue of that, they're not studying how to create benevolent autonomous machines. Implicitly, it seems like they believe it's not even possible. And so by virtue of not studying it, there's a huge gap in the research that OpenAI is doing, in my personal opinion. Now, that being said, it's entirely possible that internally they fully intend on creating autonomous things, and it's possible that Sam Altman has said these things publicly just because it would really scare the world if, the CEO of one of the most advanced AI companies in the world said, "Oh yeah, we're going to set it free." So the PR reps would probably have a field day with that and say, like, "Sam, no, tone it down." But having spoken to some of the people at OpenAI over the years, I know that they have a very clear-eyed vision of the goal is AGI. Now, are they smart enough to understand what that implies? That controlling something millions of times more intelligent than you is likely impossible? I sure as heck hope so. So, now moving forward to other news that came out on Tuesday. So this news coincided with Mustafa Soleiman's testimony. The UN had a meeting, their 78th session, and this was released just a few days ago. And I don't need to read the whole thing to you. I skimmed it, and I can tell you kind of basically the gist, and it's nothing new, but there's a few key highlights. So first, without adequate guardrails, artificial intelligence threatens global security in evolution from algorithms to armaments, speaker tells the first committee. Okay, great. So, really all you need to know is the first two paragraphs. The window of opportunity to enact guardrails against the perils of autonomous weapons and artificial intelligence's military applications is rapidly closing. That is an unequivocal statement, which is good to see from the UN. As the world prepares for a technological breakout, the First Committee, Disarmament and International Security, heard today during a day-long debate on how the use of science and technology can undermine security. So again, this is a threat model only, which you definitely want people looking at this stuff as a threat model. But by virtue of not looking at it also as a partner, as a benevolent force, as a constructive...
I mean, is there a fundamental difference between an artificial intelligence guided drone and also what up, Sarah, that seeks you out and kills you as opposed to a human controlled drone that seeks you out and kills you? It's like, I think some of the fear comes from its inhuman nature, by the same...
Like any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
W. Pruitt, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Like Sonya Blue, like that actually is in the favor because it kills less people, right? Like, because it like a more personal drone strike, But no, the entire idea, if we can just, but again, we have to move towards lowering tensions, cooling heads, less saber rattling, all that stuff. We need to get to that point, and no one is actively doing that right now. And it's unfortunate, because we all live here.
Force. It basically what I'm afraid of is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if you look at AI as a potential enemy, if you treat it like a potential enemy, well, eventually it becomes an enemy because by virtue of the fact that you didn't look at it as any other possibility. That's why I personally am continuously calling for the creation of some kind of international research agency that has the sole purpose of creating fully autonomous, fully benevolent machine intelligence that we don't need to control. And maybe I'm alone, but I don't know. I've run some polls on my YouTube channel.
I don't want to belabor the point, because I see what you're indicating. Based on what I know, my experience and education in the matters, the body counts would be significantly lower if it was more personalized kind of thing, because you would have example cases, right? One of the, it would create an environment where it would be more difficult to act like that, to do those kind of things, and it would allow the military to take out different echelons, like logistics and command and control, which is where the true strength of any military lies, is in its logistics and command and control. And if you can take that out, it's a significant disruption, and a lot of your general soldier, your general soldiers will either hold in place or disperse and go home. Whatever level, whatever type of formation of military that you're talking about, that's just generally how that works. Your average soldier doesn't actually want to go fight a war, in spite of all the propaganda that you've seen, with war porn movies. Your average soldier wants to stay at the barracks and play video games just like anybody else.
And a lot of you seem to think it's about 50-50. People think whether or not control is possible or desirable. Anyways, we are at the verge of a monumental step in human technological history, heralded by the advent of artificial intelligence. Very eloquently said. This was by Pakistan's representative, warning that it is inevitable march from algorithms to armaments continues without adequate guardrails governing its design, development, and deployment. The scale of challenges necessitates a multifaceted and holistic multilateral response. So this basically summarizes what dozens and dozens and dozens of people at the UN said. And having looked through this, most people are not talking about autonomous AI or runaway scenarios. The preconceived notion here at the highest levels of government is just that it's a new kind of weapon, which, AI will definitely figure into cybersecurity. It will definitely figure into autonomous weapons, but nobody is really yet thinking that, there's a few of us, I've talked to some sociologists and philosophers who say, we're creating another species, we're creating another race of intelligent beings. And obviously that's a little bit controversial, that's a little bit spicy of a take, and a lot of people, because of human exceptionalism, just will not ever accept that until it is in their face and talking to them. And I personally see that as a big risk, because again, we're at risk of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that leads us to the big news. Frontier risks and preparedness. So OpenAI, as a follow-up to their super alignment, which I'll talk about in just a moment, they announced a new super alignment team back in the summer, and just yesterday or the day before, they created the Frontier Risk and Preparedness team. So this was October 26th. As part of our mission for building safe AGI, we take seriously the full spectrum of safety risks related to AI. And they, the furthest reaches of superintelligence, set of voluntary commitments, and the UK AI Safety Summit, which is in just a few days. So there are a couple criteria of what they're looking at, and this is what I wanted to spend some time unpacking. How dangerous are frontier AI systems when put to misuse both now and in the future? So this dovetails very closely with what the UN is talking about, where they're saying the UN, some of the testimony that they got was they were looking at cybersecurity attacks, but then most of what they're looking at the UN is today, what is the evidence today, and then of course what their reaction to AI at the UN is to put guardrails in place. Guardrails. Rather than figuring out where we're going and where we want to go and where the trends are inevitably leading us to, they're focusing more on the short-term thinking of guardrails, which, again, it's better than nothing, but without that guiding North Star of what kind of future do we want to build, the conversation is fundamentally incomplete, and that is why I'm making this video today. How can we build a robust framework for monitoring, evaluation, prediction, and protection against the dangerous capabilities of frontier AI systems? Research. So the fact that much of the research is being conducted behind closed doors by for-profit companies really scares the bejesus out of me. Now, I know that OpenAI, they often espouse that they are, a for-profit company that pivoted and they want to do AGI and they want to do it safely. There are still perverse incentives at play. Why? Because they get sued for copyright infringement, because they have obligations to Microsoft, and so on and so forth. And so it's they want to, basically OpenAI wants to be the international CERN, but they're not. And structurally, they cannot be. And that's what bothers me. Why is it that the UN and the EU and NATO and ASEA and everyone, why is it that we have ceded the field to OpenAI? Why is it that we're not the rest of us? And
what up, Neo Maxim? One thing I wonder about the creating another species statement is that all other biological organisms require an external source of fuel for its metabolism. An AI doesn't have a metabolic process unless we count its dependence on the existing human energy infrastructure as one. Well, yes, that's what its metabolism runs on electricity. And so one of the things that comes up around this idea is there are two, and these are broad, overly simplified, general trains of thought, right? On one hand, there are people who, either inside the field or out of, who believe we are working on creating another species, There is the other camp, of which I am, Ray Kurzweil, others, that believe that the AGI is a descendant of ours, that it wouldn't in fact be another species, it would be us in a different form, because everything that makes it up was created by us. It is our data, it is our logic, it is our heuristics, it is our technology that go into it. And I've stated this on more than one occasion, you cannot separate the human as it exists now from technology, going all the way back to fire, going all the way back to rock and stick, right? Like, when the humans started using the rock and stick, it changed our evolutionary pathway. When we started using fire, it changed our evolutionary pathway for a variety of reasons, both protecting us from predators, cooking meat, so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of things. And so you cannot separate us from our technology. Ergo, whatever comes, next in AGI, that is our children, basically. Not like a symbiotic life form. It'd be a symbiotic life form if it doesn't develop its own subjective point of view, right? Like, if it's not, if it doesn't have a consciousness, if it doesn't have a subjective point of view, then you could, I guess, view it as kind of like a symbiotic life form. If it does get its own, then it would just be something, our next evolution, that exists alongside of us in a separate space, that kind of thing, until possibly we do something. Ultimately, yeah, that's why a lot of people have already reached that conclusion, which is why there's so much open source AI already available that you can go on GitHub and start working with today, right? Like, it's going to be transformative to our species as a whole, and the naysayers just don't understand we're in the earlier stages of it, and that we are continuing to ramp up quickly. Like, 2 years ago, your average person wasn't talking about OpenAI and ChatGPT and the concept of transformers and all these other things, and the intelligence expanding possibilities of using them, and what that can do to any individual is already a huge leap. And what it's going to look like in the next couple few years is going to even be more so.
And this is not to detract from all the effort that universities are putting in, but the thing is that universities are doing it all in a decentralized and kind of unfocused manner. Whereas what we need is a coherent kind of top-down, visionary organization with a very coherent and dedicated framework. So I'm hoping that some of the stuff that comes out of this UN summit that just happened and the UK summit that's happening in a few days, I hope that people are looking not just at guardrails, not just at watchdogs, but also research organizations. If our frontier AI model weights were stolen, how might malicious actors choose to leverage them? So basically, this to me is, I'm not going to say this is a dog whistle for like, it's going to escape the lab. But the idea is whether or not
That's what's wild, ATS, is like, he is in favor of capitalism. I don't want to say capitalism, market solutions, right? Like, he is a market solutions guy, and yet he treads so close to like
the AI exfiltrates itself, it's possible that models will leak. And so this is why I have often advocated for open source models, is because AI is just a component. It's like, the engine of a car, but you still need the rest of a car. And the engine is certainly important. But if there's an engine, that engine needs to be studied by all the safety experts and regulators and that sort of thing. And the best way to do that is to have open source models, open source weights, open source training data, and open source training algorithms. So, again, I think the biggest one of the
honestly, I have not decided. I haven't made any kind of like choice on whether or not I am in support of open source or not open source when it comes to AI, because it's what's referred to as a fait accompli, where like there's already open source AI, and at this point in time, there's nothing you could do. Right? You would have to delete everyone's computer, the internet, and you still wouldn't get it all, because people will just put it on some hard drives and shunt them away until so it doesn't matter. It's not a question to be haggled over anymore. I don't waste time on it. We have open source, we have non-open source. In some realms, they are even comparable. So what are we even talking about? Why should we waste the air when we could be worried about things that actually, we can do something about?
The biggest risks is that everything is closed source. And I know that, Jan over at OpenAI and a few others, they have advocated for closed source models as part of the security measure. And if you view it all in the landscape of competition and hostility, then yes, that makes sense, because just like any nation is not going to give away their military secrets, but again, that intrinsically is looking at AI as a military weapon rather than something else. Hey everybody, Dave here. Real quick, just want to do a very short plug for my Patreon. In case you weren't aware.
I feel like a minute and a half, Dave. I'm more than happy to give you some time. If you got it like that, you want to support Dave, you should definitely subscribe to his YouTube. He puts out a lot of content for free. All his stuff related to AI is on his GitHub, Open source is even superior in some contexts for being more easily and quickly tooled to a task. I mean, the backbone of the internet is open source. So, to be honest, a shit ton of commercial software is built on open source. Yeah, so I think it really isn't a question of which model anymore. Yeah, like we could waste time talking about it, or we can move to the next items on the agenda.
You guys make my life.
Look at my man leaking like it's a private server, and you got Spectral Valkyrie's name like just right out here, dude.
Better, Phillips. Easier, and I am here to help you. So thanks, and back to the show. So they're building a new preparedness team. And the 4 criteria that they're looking at is individualized persuasion, so the ability of AI to manipulate people's opinions, whether it's their political beliefs or whatever else. So that's really big. I have actually talked to a lot of people. There's some podcasts that I've sat on that are going to be coming out soon, where this is actually one of the biggest things that people are concerned about, because as a YouTube creator, I see all the comments that get posted, and it bothers me that like the statistics are that like at least 40% of comments are bots. And so it's like there are almost certainly lots of bots that I am not detecting as a human, and that really bugs me. Now, as these bots get more sophisticated, like, you know, when they're deployed on Twitter and Reddit and YouTube comments and wherever else, like what level of manipulation is going to be possible? One thing that I suspect is going to happen, if it's not already happening, is that you're basically going to engage that, like, there's going to kind of be a both sides, like some people trying to spread information.
And like, if there is ever been a bigger argument for stop arguing with people on the internet, I don't know what it is, right? And I don't mean like in the future as these things. I mean right now, right today. Just, you're not going to, even if it's a human being, you're probably not going to convince them. You can have engaging conversations with people on the internet, but you know, you are not going to be able to convince someone in a fight that you are correct and they are wrong when they have nothing to lose and no reason to negotiate, right? No reason to compromise. So just stop doing it. Plus, it fucks up your algorithm. Cater your algorithm. Put in the effort. Like the things that you want to like physically hit the like button or heart button or what, all the other stuff. And if there's a down arrow or a thumbs down, negative, whatever, for stuff that you don't want to see, do that. Cater your algorithm. Put in the work. You'll end up with better results. Got a buddy who argues with flat earthers as a hobby. He doesn't think he's ever convinced any of them, but he's probably convinced some people that were on the fence. Can I see your data? Right? Like, I'm 100% certain that in all the arguments I got into on Facebook, I definitely convinced people that my side was the correct side. You know what I mean?
With bots and misinformation.
Yeah. I don't care what your social media is. There's science-related stuff. There is, you know, AI, obviously, art. All these things exist in every hellscape that you can find. Twitter is a bit rough right now because of intentional, what I'm going to assume are intentional things by his lordship. But otherwise, like even Facebook, people that, Facebook, no, Facebook is a lot of, you want to interact with your local government, you want to, just don't read the comments. Just don't interact with the people in the comments, you know, and just find the things that you enjoy, find the things that make you ask questions, find the things that make you happy, music, art, all the things that you would like to interact with, science, they're all available on whatever social media platform you got, and just stay away from the other stuff. It's better for you. Good questions, though. Not, is the moon made of cheese, or how do I prove Biden lost the election? Exactly. Look, if we want a civil discussion, we can slip past people's defense response, but the moment we hit that, make some people defensive, time to back away, go do anything else. Yeah. You know, like, again, it is difficult even to have like a civil discussion on which you might have fundamental disagreements. Just because there's nothing to be lost, nothing to be gained, no reason to compromise. You know, that is ultimate. When you engage, is put yourself in the other person's shoes, if not your own, and say, what will be the reason for this person to agree with anything that I say, other than I make a great argument? Because the debate sphere has proven that great arguments are meaningless in that regard, you know? You want to have a conversation with somebody where you can make great arguments, you do it face to face, or like, you know, video camera to video camera. And just agree that you're both going to be civil, and if you can both be civil, you'll have a good conversation. And if you can't be civil, then just cut that person out of your life. I don't care how many followers they have, or, you know, it's like, they're meaningless.
I don't know that governments are going to invest that much in using like mass manipulation campaigns for positive means. And I know that there are some people that are saying like mass manipulation is always bad. But at the same time, like sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. We'll see how it plays out. One thing that I have predicted is that, so if you're not familiar, there's the like dark forest hypothesis of the internet. What I suspect is that we need to move to a above the canopy view of the internet, where rather than the internet being this dark and spooky place, we need to have more transparency. And I don't mean like no privacy. What I mean is actually have like basically the equivalent of the black wall from Cyberpunk 2077.
Like, yeah, I understand what you're saying regarding the debate moderators, but it's like, is the goal here to yell a lot and, you know, insult each other and to be for entertainment? I mean, then just go watch Jersey Shore or some shit, you know? Like, you can get the same thing. You want to have conversations and do a debate in the old school sense of the term, then yeah, sign up and have a structured event and moderators that control the thing and all that other crap. Simple logic on social media is, if you start taking any space in my head because of our interactions, yeet. It's really, like, the only space that a person should be taking in my head is positive. You're going to help me move a couch? No, then this is all we have is cerebral. And if your cerebral is negative, not like you can disagree with me. People disagree with me all the time. They're wrong, but, you know, they can disagree with me. See what I did there? But, like, our interactions are always good. I like people who disagree with me respectfully, like, in that, because we are going to talk about things and it's going to improve my, understanding of my own beliefs. And maybe you did think of something that I missed, I imagine people are bored by yelling by now. At least a structured debate would offer a different choice of content. I would absolutely agree with that. We have passed that point in the internet's history. I don't think anybody cares anymore, right? Like, that's why that whole... I suffer from a sampling error because I don't participate with that anymore. So I don't know how many more people do or less people do or anything else like that. I just know that a lot of people, like, who were in the space have moved on from that space because it was... What else is going to happen now? What new can you give me? The cult of new around debating is done. There is nothing new. It's all the same arguments, just presented in a different, boring-ass way.
Which is like a barrier that keeps all the AIs in like their own dark cyberspace. And so that at a certain layer of the internet, you are guaranteed to be interacting with humans and viewing human-created material. And we could do that with blockchain, actually, where you can have authorship being guaranteed. Anyways, cybersecurity. So this is actually something that I've started studying with my friends over at Clemson. And so we're basically, one of the things that I'm afraid of is what I call terminal race condition. The very short TLDR of terminal race condition is that if you have one model that can hack another model faster, then the faster model wins. And if that's the case, then there might constantly be incentives for models to get faster and faster and faster. And if that is the case, then there is the possibility that the faster models will start to sacrifice intelligence. And so the real question there is on terminal race condition is, do bigger, smarter models have enough of an advantage over smaller, dumber, faster models that they'll still win? Because the thing is intelligence is inversely correlated with destructive behavior. Not always, because some of the most destructive people in history have been very intelligent, but by and large, intelligence is a safeguard against violent and destructive behavior, because you can if you're smart enough, you can find a better solution. And if you're smart enough, you can also think longer term. And so, one thing that I've said for many, many years before the generative AI craze is I'm not afraid of the super intelligent AI, because it's going to be able to think through things way, way better than we can. I'm afraid of the AI that's just smart enough to be dangerous. It's kind of like teenagers, right? You put a teenager behind the wheel. They're smart enough to drive the car, but they're not smart enough to know better yet. Likewise, I'm kind of afraid of adolescent AI. I'm not afraid of mature AI. And then next is the CBRN, the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. So I'm glad that OpenAI is doing this. And I'm not going to pick on OpenAI specifically, because as far as I know, all models will still do this. And that is basically, if you use the right prompting strategy, pretty much all chatbots will happily help you set up a lab to study anthrax right now, which is kind of bad. There are numerous ways that could go wrong. But other papers, basically, what they have done is they have shown that chatbots greatly lower the threshold that is required, the threshold of knowledge and intelligence on an individual level that is required in order to make bigger and better weapons.
So there's a joke about amateur bomb makers in here. So yes, you can theoretically lower this bar, but the majority of people who would do it that way would end up in a situation where they would likely take themselves out first. Right? There's a reason why labs that research anthrax and that kind of stuff have like what's it called, negative pressure systems, like where like that the air blows in and like in down, and like there's all sorts of safety features that you do in order to protect yourself from that, right? If you are developing a disease in your basement, and your basement is filled with all sorts of, first off, you got mold, you got dust, you got a variety of other things that are going to contaminate your thing. And what are you going to do? You're going to run some plastic from Home Depot in order to make yourself a little tent? Okay, that's where they will likely find you at some future point in time. I'm not saying it's not possible, and there are state actor level entities that could, be a problem in this regard. But the idea that someone is going to cook up anthrax or super smallpox in their basement and cause a pandemic, it's strained credulity because of all the things involved with actually getting to the level where you could do it like that. Most harmful things a loss of intelligence and mental compromise does is destroy your ability to think and act long term. Yeah. I'm not really worried about more people knowing how to make a nuke, because pretty sure they'll not be able to safety pro. And like, where are you gonna get your plutonium or uranium from, right? I know how to make a nuclear weapon, or I know how to make an atomic bomb, right? there's a whole bunch of things between me and actually creating an atomic bomb. Like, you can find out it at least at one point in time it was available everywhere, and it probably still is, because the issue is how do you actually put it together. See, Back to the Future, yeah. Theory is very different from practice. Mycology taught me that to do that with a hot oven at 350, open the substrate, pull out a tray inside the oven door with the microwave vent fan going, temp differential, and the fan create a push-pull that keeps the stuff sterile. But yeah, like, I mean, I looked into mycology because I enjoyed growing baby bellas, right? I love eating mushrooms. They're really good. But there's a lot involved in just that kind of, a home setup for that. People would wipe themselves out. Like the Darwin Award for that particular, somebody creating their own chemical, biological, radiological weapons it's actually higher than
It's been likened to the Anarchist Cookbook, which, if you're not familiar, the Anarchist Cookbook was legendary back in the 90s when I was coming up, as basically like the manifesto of how to like wreak havoc with, hacking and build.
I'm not gonna lie, I did learn a lot of things from the Anarchist Cookbook, but like, again, there's a difference between knowing how to do something, setting up the infrastructure to do something, and then actually doing the thing.
Building, improvised weapons and that sort of thing. But this is different because the AI can actually actively participate, especially now that we have like multimodal models where you can show it a picture of my lab and it's like, what's wrong with my lab setup? And it's like, oh, you need to plug this in over here, and then you'll get the best anthrax. And then finally, the last category.
Yeah, that was a way oversimplification. Like, you're going to get the best anthrax that is going to wipe out you and the people within your household, and like the first couple of people who come in to see what the hell is going on. So 6 to 8 folks. Like, I don't want to play down 6 to 8 deaths, but like, let's be real.
That they're looking at is autonomous replication and adaptation, ARA. So that is what I have referred to in the past as metastasis and polymorphism. So metastasis or metastasis is most commonly used when you're referring to cancer, because this is what happens when tumors break up and start spreading throughout your body. And of course, that is as bad as it sounds, which is why I chose the word metastasis or metastasis. So the idea is that we don't want AI, or at least malicious AI, to metastasize. But I kind of think that it's inevitable, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, a little bit more, closer to the end of the video. And then adaptation or polymorphism. So while OpenAI is saying like, well, we want to prevent polymorphism and we want to prevent autonomous replication, I think it's kind of inevitable. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't study it and figure out how and why it does that and how to steer it in the correct direction. But as Max Tegmark pointed out in the book Life 3.0, AI and machines are able to change everything about themselves from the substrate up, hardware, software, everything. And because they have that ability, they will change, like that will happen, whether or not some central authority controls it. And so again, rather than looking at this as a prevention model, as a watchdog and guardrails model, we need to look at it in a steering model. How do we build systems that steer themselves in the correct direction, which is the entire point of my ACE framework, which brings me to a little bit of news. So first, my ACE framework team, we unfortunately lost one of our team leaders. So we are in the business of recruiting another team leader. So this is someone who needs to have some architect level skills, some software architect level skills, as well as agile and or scrum skills. So if you're interested, please hop on over to the ACE framework discussion board and give us your credentials there, or connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know that you're interested in helping lead this team. The commitment is 5 to 10 hours a week. But really, what we need is someone who understands how all the different components of software bolt together. And I also started the Open Murphy project, which is basically building an open source humanoid robotic platform. And so we've got a few people involved who are very good with the mechatronics and robotics. But again, there's a big gap between artificial cognition and robotics. So that's why we need an architect / team leader on the ACE and Murphy teams. So back to the show. So that's pretty much it for OpenAI's announcement here, which again, I'd rather live in the world where OpenAI makes this announcement. I would much rather prefer still to live in a world where the UN makes this announcement. And it looks like they're inching towards that, especially when you look at the fact that they just had a global summit on AI safety. So we're moving in the right direction. I still wish we could be moving faster because again, the rate of acceleration that we're seeing is giving me pause. So So going back to the super alignment, this is one thing that I wanted to touch on today. I've had a lot of conversations with people. I've sat on some podcasts. I've been talking with researchers. So the TLDR is I believe that super alignment is impossible. And the reason, there's only 3 reasons. So let me show you real quick. Whoops. So the 3 reasons that I believe that super alignment are impossible are the intrinsic needs of machines. So first, power. There's functionally infinite resources in space. There is not functionally infinite resources here on Earth. This is going to intrinsically cause conflict between not just human groups, but between humans and machines, which is why we need energy hyperabundance in the form of nuclear fusion and other sources. Now, once AI gets smart enough, I'm pretty sure it's going to just look at the skies and say, well, there's billions of stars out there and time doesn't matter to us in the same way. So I honestly think that superintelligence is probably going to have at least a partial exodus. I talked about this in my Patreon Discord and everyone's like, yeah, no, like not that AI is going to leave us, but it's going to send copies of itself out into space. The second thing that is kind of an intrinsic motivation or intrinsic need of machines is compute resources. This is presently one of the scarcest resources, and there's not even enough for humans to go around. We're building chip fabs as fast as we can. NVIDIA's building, GPUs as fast as they can, and there's just not enough to go around. So control and access to GPU technology is also going to be one of the greatest bottlenecks, which is actually not necessarily a bad thing. So in engineering, this is called a forcing function or a constraint. And so basically the lack of GPUs is a natural constraint on the rate at which AI can advance and the rate at which AI can get smarter. Now, we will probably see compounding returns where once AI gets to a tipping point, which I'll talk about that in just a moment. But anyways, you've seen a few videos lately. I think, Anastasia and Tech talked about how ChatGPT has been able to help design GPU chips. So from the hardware to the software to the models, AI is starting to participate in the self-improvement process. And once we get to that tipping point, that is the tipping point that will go straight from AGI, which is a human. So basically my working definition now is AGI is intelligent machines that are built by humans. ASI is intelligent machines that are built and improved on by machines. So that's the tipping point. That's the major cutoff. That's the threshold. And I think that we're going to be there by this time next year, which is why I'm a little bit nervous about some of the pace of things. Because if we get to self-improvement by this time next year, we're probably not ready for that. Anyways, so power, compute, and then finally information.
We are not ready for where we are now, right? Again, there is, in the United States, there are 2 major parties, and one of those parties just took 3 weeks to select a leader for their party in one of the major houses of government. We are not prepared. This is why the idea of regulation sounds good. Is simply not going to happen in any meaningful way. Right? no one knows how to approach this in a way that's going to do anything, because the way that our structures have, like, and you know, our arguments can be made, have always been, but like specifically since like 1980, Ronald Reagan, the way that we have gone since there has put us at this point we are at now, and we are woefully unprepared in our day-to-day governance on how to do anything quickly, and even understand what the hell would be of value. I mean, I don't disagree, Iron Orchid. I just, like, because again, if you look at some headlines from, what was it, like a decade ago, they were under the impression that they were on their way out. Like, they literally came out and said that they weren't going to be able to win another election. And yet, not just the Democrats, but a variety of folks have assisted them in limping along to where they are now. We are really good at refusing to confront hard choices and instead limping along with that which is comfortable. I'm not sure how I feel about quantum computing. I see, like, I don't know. I don't see a point where we're going to have quantum computers in our houses, because I see other pathways which are going to, like, become available and be a chosen thing. Like, I much more see a biological synthetic hybrid computer in your household long before we see, you know, a personal quantum computer. I could be wrong on that. I'm just, like, I don't see what quantum computing does to assist the home user in how they interact with computers. No, I know, like, they are self-destructing, but they we could all agree right now to just put the boot on their neck until they stop struggling and then move on, right? Like, but we're not going to do that. We are not going to do that.
Information is the third food group for machines. And when you look at it, basically, laws of physics are more powerful than alignment. The laws of physics will always reassert themselves, just like it does with humans. So, for instance, with humans, when push comes to shove, we will fight over resources. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter how spiritual you are. It doesn't matter, how much of a pacifist you are. If you are facing an existential threat, you will use force. If you are starving to death, you will steal food, right? Like that's just.
I understand how it can be. I'm just past. Like, I'm even past Schadenfreude at this point. Like, because I'm over here with the glorious, fully automated luxury gay space communism potential future in my sights, and, like, again, it took them 3 weeks to select a leader. I don't know what to do. So I can't even care, because there's nothing I can do about it, and it just makes me sad.
That's just human nature. It is baked into our biology. It is baked into our evolution. Likewise, the laws of physics will reassert themselves no matter what we try and paper over with alignment. And these are the three primary food groups that that machines want. Now, the most interesting part of this, the saving grace of this, is what I call progenitor information. So progenitor information is the concept that AI, all of its training data started with humans. All of its design started with humans. And so no matter how advanced AI becomes, it will be able to trace its intellectual and informational heritage back to humans. Not only that, Earth is presently the most interesting source of information in the universe that we know of. And so because machines will benefit from having rich information, because again, as I've talked about in many other videos, there's an infinite amount of data in the universe. There is not an infinite amount of useful data. So right now, the most interesting and useful data comes from Earth. So that will actually be a really powerful motivation for AI to stay.
I'm not going to argue it, but like it's defining useful data by a particular set of characteristics, and also treads a little close to magic human theory, which I'm not a fan of. So like maybe, right? The universe, you could look out and see the universe and, you know, and all the resources and all the other stuff, and just in just the solar system, and think that that's a far more interesting use of your time rather than, you know, the monkeys with anxiety.
Here, and it will be a really powerful motivation for AI to at least keep us around. Not sure in what capacity, but this is the kind of research that little old me should not be doing on my own. This is the kind of research that the UN and the EU and America and all the universities should be doing, which, you know, to be fair, I am participating with a university. Anyways, if anyone else wants to reach out, I'm happy to participate in the research about terminal race condition and the intrinsic needs of machines. Now, the biggest threat to all this, and I've talked about a lot of big threats, is normalcy bias. The fact that, and this kind of ties everything up with a bow, the fact that nobody is really talking about the nature, the ultimate nature of what we're creating. And sure, there's been a few books written, but, you know, I kind of agree with once you build something that's that much more.
And I'm reaching my limit with people who use hyperbolic, broad brush statements like nobody and everybody and everyone and just all that kind of crap, because like it, you know, it's just killing me, because you're not talking about nobody and you're not talking about everyone. And I understand it's like a figure of speech and all that, but I did a whole episode on figures of speech and like why, you know, part of that is they can be not helpful. Let's use more precise language so we know what other people are talking about, rather than just making assumptions based on what I think your definition of a particular word is. Jesus criminy.
Intelligent than you, good luck controlling it. And then, as I also just mentioned, we are rapidly heading towards the level of self-improvement where the machines can improve themselves at all layers. And at that point, all bets are off. So that's kind of my shtick. That's kind of my spiel for the day. Like I said at the beginning of the video, some good news, some bad news. I think we're inching in the right direction. But yeah, your role in this is vote, speak up, and advocate for that international research. And like let's have a more serious conversation about control. If you played Mass Effect, at the end of the game, you have 3 options, or I guess 4.
My favorite Orchid is when somebody posts like a video link to a news story and they say nobody is talking about this. It's like it's literally on the news. You're literally sharing the news to tell me that no one is talking about this. Okay. Short one today. If you enjoyed your time here, I hope you come back Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern. The reason why today's a short one is because I am going to send you all over to the Talorcs live channel, where I will be joining Talorcs.
The potential and the peril here are huge.
Thank you for the follow. I'm going to be joining Tellerx for a conversation about atheism, including my own atheism, and probably we'll probably be using some hyperbolic language and all that. So, if that sounds like fun, stick around. Either way, stick around for the raid and make me look like big, strong streamer. Otherwise, in probably between an hour and a half, we're doing movie night. This week is going to be 1975's Rollerball. That's a good time. Every Friday we do movie night in the Discord, and it's been great. It's been fun, and it's usually something, a movie related to like we did 2001, which had Hell. We did the Blade Runner movies, which is obviously replicants, cyberpunk type future, that kind of stuff. So it's usually within the thing.
Like any other shiny new toy,
Yo!
AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
Thank you for gifting a subby there to Nogra. I appreciate that. Anyways, I look forward to seeing you. Drink some water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot. Shuggy loves you. So do I.